Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is the channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on and talk about some books. I recently saw this pop up over at Becca and the Books YouTube channel where it's essentially a getting to know me video through one of my favorite genres, which is fantasy romance. So this is going to be the fantasy romance book tag where we run through 11 questions for you to get to know me a little bit better, to learn some of my favorite fantasy romance books, my favorite characters, all that kind of thing. And of course, I want this to go both ways. I want you to check out all these questions that I'll put in the description box below and let me know what your answers to some of these would be too, or just whether you've read and would agree with my answers that I'm about to go through now. So without further ado, let's get straight into our first question, which is, what is the fantasy romance book that got you into the genre for the very first time? Now I'm gonna try really hard to not make this a Sarah J Maas appreciation video, but all in all, a lot of my favorite stuff is in her books, so there's going to be a few references to her, and this first question is definitely where we're going to start with that, but maybe not with the series that you would think. So I know a lot of people would answer this question with ACOTAR because I feel like it's the genre defining book. Like, everybody has read ACOTAR if they like fantasy romance, but for me, the book or the series that got me into fantasy romance was House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas, the first book in the Crescent series, and I think this was Sarah J Maas's first official foray into the adult genre, though everybody kind of argues that she'd already kind of got there towards the end of the ACOTAR series. But this book is the book that got me back into a reading. It follows Bryce Quinlan, who is half human, half fae, I think, and she's essentially thrown into a murder investigation by the powers that be in her society because she has a personal connection to the murders that are happening because her own friends, basically her family, were killed in a similar way to the current cases. So the powers that be bring her in, they give her a bodyguard and sidekick, Hunt Athalar, who naturally she falls in love with over the course of the novels, and they find out about this underbelly of their society that is just way more intense and convoluted than they ever thought before. This power system that's at play that they didn't realize before. And oh my god, if you got to the end of House of Sky and Breath, I'm gonna not spoil it because I know some people still haven't read it, but man, that blew my mind. And honestly, I think everybody should read the first two books and the book that's coming out soon, just to witness the just enormity and the craziness and the mind-bogglingness that is the end of House of Sky and Breath. So that's the answer to the first question. The second question is, if you could pick one world from within a fantasy romance book that you could move to, which one would it be? And for me, this would be the sort of Caraval Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber world, and that is purely because, one, I kind of love the game aspect of it and the manipulation and the craziness and the competition aspect. I think that's so fascinating, and the mystery as well. But two, because every scene that I read in those books were just so vivid, so image forward, so colorful, so magical, so whimsical almost. It was just, everything was just so visual, and the world I pictured was just so beautiful and colorful, and I think that would be an amazing world to be a part of. Don't get me wrong, the manipulation, all that sort of stuff, it's fun to read, probably not so fun to actually be involved in. But I like to think that the Caraval universe, whilst it is definitely dangerous, as all fantasy romance universes are, I don't think it's one of the most dangerous. You wouldn't catch me dead in Throne of Glass or ACOTAR or even Crescent City or any of those worlds, because those just would scare the shit out of me, and I'm not about that battle strategy. But Caraval, I feel like the mind games would be more my speed. The third question is, if you could marry one character from a fantasy romance series, who would it be? And for me, that would have to be Asriel from ACOTAR, obviously by Sarah J Maas. Sorry, there's another Sarah J Maas character in here. I think that character, he doesn't get a lot of speaking time, dialogue time in the books, but he is just a vibe. He's mysterious, he's dark, he's powerful on another level that nobody really seems to be able to understand fully. He's loyal, he's compassionate, he's friendly, but he's quiet. He's just, I think he would be just the most adorable character to be in a relationship with. So 100% Asriel. The next question is, if you could be one sort of magical being in a fantasy romance world, what would I be? And 100%, no doubt about it, not even 100%, 1000%, no doubt about it, I would be a dragon from Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I think like enough said, but you know, those dragons are like, they have so much power in that society. They are the power that be. They're so respected, so revered. People obviously try to manipulate them in their own way, but those dragons I think are incredible. And I love how sassy they are in some ways in terms of the characters that we got to meet in that series, but also like they just don't see the different levels of prejudice that humans in that world see. They just see people as they are, and they see things black and white. And I think that would just be so much fun to experience, to like see humans running around being like, oh, I don't like this person, I don't like this person. Whereas the dragon's just like, are they strong? Can they fight? Would they make like a good person in the wing? Cool, you can come over here. Great. Like, it's just so simple. And I feel like it'd be nice to be that powerful and revered and respected. And I kind of think that they probably have like their own little situation going on with like their bonds and everything. So yeah, 100% I would be a dragon from Fourth Wing. Next one is, if I could kill one fantasy romance character, who would it be? And I mean, there are two here that I would probably kill, and they're probably pretty obvious. I would kill Dane from Fourth Wing, and I'm not going to say why because it's kind of spoilers, I guess. And I would kill Tamlin from ACOTAR. And again, not going to say why because I guess it's kind of spoilers. That one less so because everybody knows ACOTAR, but yeah, I would kill both of them because I think they have very, very similar issues in their respective books in terms of why they're such annoying, hateful characters. And I would pretty much kill them for the same reasons. So yeah, those two. Definitely. Next question is, what fantasy romance character do I genuinely believe would be my IRL bestie? And I have to say it would probably be Rose from Twin Crowns by Catherine Doyle and Catherine Weber. This is a book that I've read more recently, gave 5 stars, absolutely loved, and cannot wait to jump right into the sequel. And the reason I would pick Rose is because the way that she bonds with her friends in the story, because she doesn't have any family at the beginning of the story as far as she's aware. So she creates these really intense familial bonds with her friends where they are just everything to each other. The trust, the loyalty, the love that they all have in their group is just unlike anything else. And I think it would be amazing to be a part of that. Plus, I love that she's kind of naive. She sees the world as this bright, beautiful thing. She learns a lot throughout the story, and she's willing to be so accepting and open of all the different things that she's learning, and she's willing to question everything that she's been raised to believe. She's such a strong character. I think, honestly, she would be an amazing IRL bestie. Next question is, what would be my fantasy weapon of choice? It would have to be the bow and arrow. I think there is something so sexy about the bow and arrow. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's like power from like the skyline sort of thing. I just love the bow and arrow. I think it is the best weapon, but I would also really, really want some mad hand-to-hand combat skills to go alongside that, because I mean, you get into close quarters, there ain't much you're gonna do with a bow and arrow. You gotta hope and pray that you got the strength to fight your way out of it. But I feel like with a bow and arrow, you've got to have like decent arm strength and everything. So maybe that would translate, I don't know, but yeah, that 100% would be my weapon. Next question is, who is the sexiest fantasy romance character of all time? And I mean, Rhysand, ACOTAR, I mean, say less. Like, he's everything. The way he respects Feyre, the way he forms those really close family bonds with everyone that he's sort of created into this beautiful little world of his. He is fiercely loyal and protective, but also not willing to like say to people, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like, he's not going to throw his weight around, not throw his power around so much. I just think he's an amazing character, and I think he's sexy as shit. And the next question is, pick one fantasy romance book to burn, to ditch, to get rid of. And for me, this is The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas. So kind of going away from the Sarah J Maas appreciation video with this one, because honestly, I don't think this book is necessary. I don't think the novellas are necessary. I think they're cute in the way that like they're like Easter eggs, I guess, that you then get to enjoy them coming into play towards the end of the Throne of Glass series. But if you're gonna create a whole series of books, I guess, or a whole series of novellas purely for the fact that it might make a reader smile throughout Kingdom of Ash to see some of those characters come back, then I'm kind of like, what's the point? And I know it isn't that heavily fantasy romance, that's only like a brief sort of plot line, but it's got enough romance in there for me to say that this is definitely the book that I would be like, no need. Next question is, if you had to pick one fantasy romance book that was the only book you were ever allowed to read ever again for the rest of time, which book would it be? And for me, it's A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. We're going back into the Sarah J Maas appreciation video with this one because honestly, I love that book. I think it's got the romance development. It's got some really serious character development. I think it's got an escalation of a plot that I find absolutely fascinating. It's got this familial development. It's got world building. It's got a little bit of sexy time, which ain't bad. It's got some angst. It's got some tension. It's got fights. It's got everything, and it's got moments at the end of the story that just absolutely floor you. And I know how the next book ends, so I wouldn't get to the end of that book and be like, oh damn, I want to know what happens next, because I already know that. So I feel like out of that series, that's the one book where I would jump in and again and again and again and again. And I mean, part of that is because right now I just really want to reread that specific book. And the very, very last question is, if I could recommend one fantasy romance book to someone who is new to the genre and really wants to jump in that isn't everything that I've just listed in the rest of these questions, which would that be? And for me, I would say Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. I think this book is a beautiful book. I think it's a really good book for someone who isn't as familiar with the genre because it's set in our world. It's set in England. It's set in a modern context. So it's a world that you'll be really, really familiar with and that doesn't take a lot of time to adjust to. You'll go in with that knowledge already of kind of how the world works. It's witchy in this beautiful way. It's got this family element, like this found family element that's absolutely gorgeous. It's got betrayal. It's got secrets. It's got lies. It's got everything. It's got really amazing LGBT representation just in general, and it has really important societal conversations as well about those two topics, as well as like race, class, discrimination, all those sorts of things. I think it's just an amazing read. And then it's got romance in there as well, and it's got family, and it's got this overarching plot that is so intricate but also so easy to wrap your head around. And I mean, I'm obsessed with that book. I gave it 5 stars when I read it, and I could not stop talking about it for ages and ages and ages. So yeah, that's definitely one that if you're new to the genre, you like a little bit of witchy stuff, you like a little bit of romance, and you just want to have a book that's kind of going to feel a bit more familiar in terms of getting to know the world and the different sort of powers at play, that is definitely one that I would recommend. So that is the end of the fantasy romance book tag. Do come and chat to me in the comments down below with all of your answers to these questions, or just whether you agree with my answers, or just let me know what you're reading at the moment, loving it, hating it, all that kind of thing. Come and chat to me in the comments down below. I love talking to you guys, and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really, really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell all down below. It's a super, super easy way to help my channel grow, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!